So, today I want to talk about the decision I made at work that made it much easier to transition into entrepreneurship and start on my own path. It's a little controversial, and if you do decide to do this, you need to make sure you do it right, you do it honorably, do it with class and respect. For me, given my circumstances and my career leading up to it, it was one of the best decisions that I believe I made that set me up for success when I made the leap into full time self employment. If you're in your job and you're not super passionate about it, but it's comfortable, it pays the bills and you want to try something else out, this video is for you. And I would do this instead of point blank quitting your job because this could be a great way to test out entrepreneurship at a low risk. So how did I get to this point and make this pivot? Because early in my career, I always tried very hard. I was doing the extra things to get ahead, trying to get promotions, and it served its purpose. And it was good for me at the time to learn and garner respect in my professional career. But eventually, this just wasn't cutting it for me anymore, and I became kind of checked out. I was stressed at work, I was putting a lot of time into it, and it wasn't yielding the same results anymore. The extra money was becoming harder and harder to fight for, and the advancements would be a ton more work to get to those next levels. And I knew I wanted to leave and move and kind of go traveling, do my own thing. So I made a decision to do this early in 2024. Enter quiet quitting. So let me briefly summarize what this is. So quiet quitting refers to an employee choosing to do the bare minimum required by their job contract without going above and beyond to improve their work-life balance and pursue other things outside of work hours. So the idea here is that you put in the bare minimum to just not get fired, except that you're not going to be given as many raises or promotions and stuff like that. So at its surface, like quiet quitting sounds bad and lazy, right? And I'm not advocating for not working hard. I want to make that clear. You still got to put in your time at work, but when it comes time to check out, don't stay late and work any harder than you need to at work. You go home and you work on things that you're passionate about, and things that you own and you own their destiny. You can work on your dreams on the side and put your mental energy towards that. Like, let's be honest, most of us aren't ready to just pack up and quit our jobs immediately, and I sure wasn't for most of my career. So quiet quitting made sense because it's not, full quitting. It's not hard quitting or however you want to call it. You still have your income. You're just acknowledging that your 9 to 5 is now a temporary thing, and you can now put priority and mental energy towards other things outside of work. You can keep building your financial cushion while working on other things. I believe this quiet quitting phenomenon is kind of created by two big fundamental problems. Number one, just people aren't engaged and passionate at work. Like, they're doing it for the money. Like, studies show that 80% of people are unengaged at work, and people want to find other passions, other things they want to work on that lights the fire under them. Another thing is that there's a very slow pay raise structure. You might get a few percentage points a year for raises for most employees if you're lucky. So hard work is just not rewarded well. And I experienced that firsthand many times. And even the only ways I could get significant raises was by switching jobs entirely a few times. So now that we know what quiet quitting is and a little bit about what's causing it, let me explain why I made this shift personally. So quiet quitting was a pivot for me because I was a tryhard most of my career, and I earned a good reputation because of this. I'd always go above and beyond. I'd take on tasks and projects that weren't needed just to learn and develop my skills and develop a trustworthy reputation. And it did reward me well from time to time. I mean, I'd basically doubled my salary in 5 years in the industry at that point. But as I advanced in my career, it became harder and harder to keep doing that, and I was denied raises many times. So I made the decision to quiet quit for several reasons. First of all, I knew I was going to fully quit at some point in the near future, and I wanted to establish another way to make money in the form of other income streams. So I thought that putting energy towards something else made logical sense to me because I don't want to go quitting my job with nothing besides my dividends income. I kind of needed something else to give me that peace of mind. Then I looked at my career, and I'd just been promoted earlier that year in 2024, and I knew it would be like 3 to 4 years of pure grind just to get to that next level, which would have been management or a more highly specialized engineering position. And I don't think I wanted that. Like, promotions and raises are not easy in corporate America, and each one I got, I fought for and had to go through many rejections to get that. And I just don't think I had the willpower to go through those battles again, because I remember the times when I thought I had a great year. I did a lot of work, accomplished a lot of stuff, and went the extra mile just to be met with that meets expectations rating, which is basically a C on the company report card. And I got that a few times. And it's like, oh, here's your 2% raise. You did great. Congrats. And I was like, I was already in a higher level engineering position. I was stressed. They expected good work out of me and deferred to me for decisions. And I didn't think I wanted, more responsibility than I already had. I didn't want to make my life any harder at work than it needed to be. I was also losing my passion for work. I felt boxed in. And this happens in corporate America, where sometimes you become important on your team, and you might be working on a lot of stuff that's just not very exciting, and it doesn't really transfer over well. And my job was less dynamic, than I wanted it to be over time. I mean, I had very little control over the projects. You just kind of get told what to work on. And I wanted to explore. I wanted to, discover my passion again. So instead of staying late, showing up early, and doing the extra things and working 50 or more hours a week, I became content with just putting in the bare minimum, enough to get by and enough for people to not notice me. And I took all that extra time and energy that I put into wanting to be a great employee and put this into the projects on my own time, put it into my fitness and stuff that I enjoyed more, like YouTube. I also did this next part. This is a very important part of quiet quitting. I'm going to call this emotional detachment or mental detachment from the outcomes of your job. And this was a game changer for me because when you care a lot about your job, you want things to go well, you want to fight the battles to get things to go your way, and that's stressful. And then it's even more disheartening when you don't win. You get really stressed and it really takes up a lot of your mental capacity when you're trying to control what happens at work and when you really care about the outcomes. And I really did care about the outcomes for a long time. I was always like pestering management to try to do things differently or try new ideas. But the difference is now I had emotional detachment. I didn't care what really happened. I just kind of went with the flow instead of being the disruptor and the guy, voicing his opinions. These aren't my battles anymore, I would tell myself. However, I still showed up, I still maintained a professional standard, but I wasn't chasing the extra gold stars anymore. I didn't want people to notice that I was like kind of detached from everything, if at all possible. I knew full well in my head I was not working anywhere near to my potential at work. And I knew that I couldn't go on like this for super long because it could be damaging to the reputation of a hard worker that I built. And plus, I really did like the people I was working with, and I didn't want to let them down or create extra work for them or irritate them. I didn't want them frustrated with me. I was just not doing the extra work. I wasn't volunteering to take on the heavy stuff like I was before. I didn't want to be remembered as the guy who lost motivation. So I knew I had to follow through and quit eventually. And quiet quitting should kind of be viewed as a pre-quitting or a temporary strategy for sure. And my strategy worked because I was happier and less stressed at my normal job because I no longer really cared about what was happening while I was at work. And given all this new energy I had, I poured this into my fitness. I got in better shape, poured this into my new hobby, my YouTube channel. And I finally got my break on YouTube and it became an income generator while I was still at work. And this definitely helped me in taking the leap with confidence, knowing I had two other income streams coming in whenever I wanted to quit. So I credit quiet quitting to freeing up my mental energy to work on other things and helped me take the entrepreneurship leap with a better cushion. And I was going into self-employment now with at least $1,000 of income per month and more money in my portfolio to use if needed. So there are many reasons why you would want to quiet quit, but you got to be careful and it should be done with care because it is a little bit risky. If you do decide to quiet quit, you're basically acknowledging your job is a temporary job. You're resigning yourself to the possible end of your current job. And you really shouldn't be quiet quitting if you don't have a plan on full-time quitting and putting your energy towards something else productive. Like if you quiet quit to go play more video games or more Fortnite or something, that's not a great reason. Another reason people quiet quit is because getting raises is tough. They're tough to come by, and it's usually only a few percentage points a year for most people if you're lucky. Sometimes you can get a bigger raise by just going your own way, like by getting a freelance client, by starting a project like YouTube. I gave myself about a 4 to 5% raise when I got my channel partnered and got to 10K subs even before quitting my job. If you find yourself super stressed at work, a lot of it just points to the fact that you really care about your job and the outcome, which is not a bad thing. But if you're a quiet quitter, you kind of have to practice this level of detachment from the outcomes at work. And this helped me manage my stress, and it was crucial to when I knew I'd be quitting. If you want to have projects to dive into but want to keep your job, like quiet quitting responsibly can make sense because it claims your life back, you claim your work-life balance back. You're not going to be the guy, burning out, trying to take on everything. And it's going to give you some clarity on life that you might need. Like I've lost myself in the work before, and sometimes just taking a step back and looking at everything from a high level is what you need. I believe that when you do a job, you're not obligated to go above and beyond if you don't want to. You're obligated to do the job well and meet expectations at the minimum, but how much you do beyond that should be optional. There are pros and cons of going above and beyond, and it's honestly an opportunity cost. There's a risk of putting more effort into your job, and I took that risk and failed many times because I tried really hard. Then I didn't get the rating I thought I deserved. I got a small raise. Your time might actually be better spent doing other things sometimes. And I always say this too, you're not defined by your work, and you're not obligated to donate your time to one company just because that's your full-time job. So there are several things you need to be careful about with quiet quitting. And my main problem with it is that if you take it too far, it can be destructive for you, your career, and those around you. And if you do decide to do this, you just got to be careful because there's so many downsides. I mean, I was Not a quiet quitter, first of all, until I knew I'd be quitting. I went above and beyond early in my career, which was a great thing to do to learn a bunch of stuff, get the reputation that's good, get your network, get your money up, and more. If you quiet quit too early, you could experience career stagnation early. Like you really got to make a plan for doing something productive because now you're not going to be seen as the guy for promotions or new opportunities. And that really helped me out early in my career. If I quiet quitted too early, I wouldn't have had the engineering experience that I do now. You're missing out on skills growth potentially by just reserving to not doing your job very well. You might also get a damaged reputation. Some managers might see you as disengaged or unmotivated, and your fellow coworkers, your colleagues might resent you because now they have to pick up the slack that you created, and that could lead to tension as well. You don't want to develop the reputation of someone who does mediocre work because this world's a small world out there. The world's smaller than you think, and you might harm yourself even outside of the company. And this is what I was afraid of because my reputation really was everything. And when I was working less hard than what was normal for me, I didn't want my coworkers to see that. So I knew that this had to be a very temporary thing. And thankfully, my reputation earlier in my career really helped me a lot here. And you might even be further dissatisfied if you quiet quit. Because if you're doing the bare minimum for a long period of time, like you're not doing yourself any favors and you're not doing anyone else a favor that's working with you. Of course, if you quiet quit, there are some very real worst case scenarios. Like you're putting yourself on the chopping block. Like if layoffs happen, you're going to be the first to go as opposed to other people putting in effort. And if you start working below the bare minimum, like below what's required of you, that's just like not a good place to be in. It's immoral and maybe even illegal if you're doing a ton of other work during when you're supposed to be working on your full-time job. So I get where the company's coming from there. Quiet quitting to me is still putting the hours in that you're required to do, but not more. You're not putting in more, you're just not putting in less. That's the key. It's the balance. So should you try hard at work or quiet quit at your job? The answer is totally depends on your situation and the phase of life you're in and what your goals are. Like sometimes there are better alternatives, like switching jobs. There's several potential benefits of switching jobs if you're not happy in your job. If you're also in a truly draining or toxic situation, full quitting should be considered. If you do decide to quiet quit, you need a plan and you need to understand the why behind it, like fix the underlying problem. If you want to be an average employee at work so that you can maximize time with your family or start a business, that's completely fine. I mean, that's pretty much what I did. But if you're quiet quitting just because you don't like your employer or you don't like your job, like you should consider switching, careers or jobs. Quiet quitting can harm you. You got to be careful. I do see it as kind of a necessary evil, though, if you have other priorities outside of work, because you're not obligated to donate your extra time if you don't need to. That's what trying hard is, right? It's essentially a gamble, right? If you're donating a ton of time to one company, you could be using that time for other things that could pay off better in the future. You just don't know until you try it. So quiet quitting shouldn't be the goal. It's just a tool, right? Like use it wisely and make sure you're moving towards something better. Ultimately, it worked out for me because I had a plan and I executed on the plan. I still put in the necessary hours at work and then I worked hard on my projects and then it panned out for me and I was able to take the jump. So it's all just what's going to work for you. You got to have a plan. You can't just blindly quiet quit without a plan. So there you have it. Let me know your thoughts on this whole thing. Been a little bit busy, so I'm hoping to be able to crank out some videos, but I got some projects in the works right now, and I appreciate everyone's support on my videos. I will catch everyone on Why Learn Wednesday, which could possibly be on Thursday. We'll never know. Catch everyone later.